lagi berak, pasti tempatnya itu.
Baku ba? Baku na baku ba? Baku. Labi deh, sir enterprise ni baku man mabing. Sir enterprise ni baku man mabing.
Kami pembina Indonesia, Minister Konsel, Ministerial Balibo. Iya, tuir kami pembina Indonesia Sekong, Belet akan melewati, noan pembina Komandan PT Balibo. Bilay kain tais. Tuhi Ami Pembina Ambassador Nomor Zambia Bele Pai Pakat Maliwin Ami Pembina Undang Niwe Batuke Kain Tai Pai Indonesia Ami Pembina Undang di Bok Kumpanya Mariana Bele Pakat Maliwin Tara Tai Pai Indonesia Tuit Ami Pembina Indonesia Ambassador Australia Indonesia Indonesia dalam Kamerun Ami Pembina Presiden Post SC Delegasi Tais Bahasa Indonesia Tuit Ami Pembina Presiden Manusia Bonaro Delegasi Kamerun Ami Pembina Lokal Penata Pada Posisi Delegasi Tais Bah Presiden Dalam Musim Tuit Ami Pembina Komisario PDHD Delegasi Maliwin Ami Pembina Sejauh Malayake Kain Tai Bah Indonesia mana laki? Tuir Ami Pembina Signora Terry Brax Signora Terry Brax Terry Brax Oke. Kami pembina Koordinator Veteran Post Balibo kain Taiba Mr. Tendra. Malipir.
All right, okay.
Ya, tuir kami pembina sesi Saudi Balibo at kain Taiba Manateri Rex. Dia Manateri yang mana maka loyalitas o serviço no contribui para Balibo Austras, ka fundador para Balibo Sensi, no nia contribui durante tinanaron dilaran, no hoy kita celebra lorong 50 anos Balibo Pioneer yang masih reforma. Manateri kami apresiar, no agradecer baik buatnya contribuição para Balibo comunidade. Obrigado banyak. Kami pembina Mr. Event Secretary, Representa Material Martires, Señor Fernando Pele Maidui, Kaintai Ba, Señor Aiman, Señor Ivan Mak, Wan Mana Hosi, Mr. Greg Secretary, Tuir kami pembina Mr. James Kelly, Membro si Balibo Austras, kami pembina Sesi Suku Balibo Bila, at kain tayo pa Mr. James. Tuir kami pembina Senyora Monica Peri, kami pembina Sesi Suku Saniri, at kain tayo ba Senyora Monica. Tuir kami pembina Senyora Jules Sekleton, kami pembina Sesi Suku Lehitu, at kain tayo ba Senyora Jules. Tuir kami pembina Menina Kids Sekleton, kami pembina Sesi Suku Lelima, ka representante, Pele Maui, kain tayo ba niya Aliketo. Kami pembina Jake Sekleton, kami pembina Sesi Suku Koa, Tuir kami pembina Amang Parong di Santa Cruz Balibo,
Amo iha.
kami pembina Sesi Suku Batugare, at kain tayo ba
Amo iha, ang parok iha. Amo hakat may dadang. Konser imprensa, presidente konser imprensa.
Ikut kami kumida Presidente Konser Imprensa Timor Leste. Kami kumida Komdami FFDTI Post Gunung Bibit atau naik kain tai baiknya Presiden Konser Imprensa Timor Leste. Bien, obrigado, Barang. Ya, kami sudah. Ya, kami combinará pati kita hotu atau mai hola pati a cadeira deve preparado. Kita acompanha sua excelência batura cadeira. Kita bahasa liman.
Bon dia. I'm Steve Brax, former Premier of Victoria, Australia and patron of the Balibo House Trust. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all here and to acknowledge His Excellency Ajou Pereira, Minister of the Presidency of the Council of Ministers, Her Excellency Helen Tuna, New Zealand Ambassador to Timor-Leste, Her Excellency Caitlin Wilson, Australian Ambassador to Timor-Leste, Senor Paul Moniz Mayor, President of the Municipality of Bobonaro, Senor Casimiro dos Santos, Local Administrator of Balibo, Senor Antonio Marley, Chair of the Timorese Press Council, the Secretary of State for Communications, Expedito Jimenez, and representatives of the Balibo House Trust, Terry Brax, Monica Ferry, James Kelly and Evan Shackleton.
Bom dia. House de Brax, Padreiro ba Balibo House Trust. Idanek solok pot my how atu simu imi hotu yane no reconhece. Su Excelencia Presidente José Ramsota ka representante. Su Excelencia Agio Pereira, Ministro do Presidência do Conselho do Ministro. Su Excelencia Helen Tuna, Embaixadora Nova Zelândia e Timor-Leste. Su Excelencia Caitlin Wilson, Embaixadora Austrália e Timor-Leste. Senhor Paulo Muniz Maia, Presidente Autoridade do Município Bobonaro. Senhor Casimiro dos Santos, Administrador Posto Balibo. Senhor António Chair Mali, Presidente do Conselho de Imprensa Timor-Leste. Representante Sira Hossi Balibo House Trust. Senhora Terry Brax, Senhora Monica Ferry, Senhor James Kelly, no Senhor Ivan Shackleton. Ivan Makwan Mane, Hossi Journalist Nebe Hetang Oho.
Evan Shackleton is the son of murdered journalist Greg Shackleton. In addition to being here, as a member of the Balibo House Trust, Evan is representing the families of the Balibo Five. I'd like to also acknowledge his wife Julie and children Kate and James. And of course, staff from the Community Learning Centre, community leaders and our many friends and guests from the Balibo community.
Ivan Makwan Mane Hossi Journalist Nebe Oho, Greg Shackleton. No alende hane son membro ida Hossi Balibo House Trust. Ivan representa Familia Hossi Balibo 5 Australia. How most akan reconhece Nefel, Julie, no Juan Sira, Kate, no James. No claro, pessoal Sira Hossi Centro Balibo Community Learning Center, líder comunitário Sira, no amne beno no bay nakabarak Hossi Comunidade Balibo.
Friends, it is difficult to believe that it was 50 years ago that 5 young journalists flew from Melbourne to Darwin and on to Delhi to investigate rumours of Indonesian incursions across the border. Fearful of imminent invasion, they painted an Australian flag on the building in front of me. That today is known as the Flag House Community Learning Centre.
Benusira, susara tu fiar katak iatina 5 liuba. Jurnalista foi ensaio na Lima, Sema Hossi, Melbourne, Mai Darwin, no Mai New Delhi. Hori investiga boato Sira Konova incursão Indonesia, nian di Hossi frontera. Tapa invasão nebe basic, Sira pinta bandeira australiana, ia edifício, ia hanya oi. Nebe ohilorong conhecido honaran uma bandeira Balibo 5 Community Learning Center ka Balibo CLC.
As international journalists, they believe their independence would be respected if they encountered invading forces. They were truly international journalists. Greg and Tony were Australian, Brian and Malcolm from the UK, and Gary was a New Zealander.
Nunca jornalista internacional Sira fiar katak Sira de independencia, se retam respeito, se Sira hasuru força invasor Sira mak jornalista internacional Sira Nuni. Greg no Tony mak australiano, Brian no Malcolm Hussein Lidu, no Gary mak Emma Nova Zelandia.
I can still recall hearing the news on the radio that the journalists were missing. I was just 20 then, just a year younger than the youngest missing journalist, 21-year-old Tony Stewart. It was devastating when we finally got the news that they were dead.
How se lembra na fatin? Wai hira rona noticia ia radio kata jornalista sira lakon. How hoi dari ronulu? Tinang idade ki ikliu, hosi jornalista nebe lakon hoi dari Nurak, tinang ronulu resi ida Tony Stewart. How mayu si balap no koye si familia Stewart.
Did the Australian, British and New Zealand governments at the time express diplomatic outrage and seek to hold the Indonesian government to account? As the families of the murdered journalists know all too painfully well, the governments did nothing. All three accepted Indonesia's claim that their son's brother's husband died in crossfire.
Governo Australia, Inglaterra, Nova Zelandia, atudo indignação diplomática, não buka atu responsabilidade ba governo Indonesia. Anessa família sira hosi jornalista sira nebe mate hatene katak. Kristi Teves, governo da halu buat tidak. Sira na itu aseta, Indonesia nia reklamação sira nia wan mane, mon alim, lain mate iha tiru cruzado ka ya funularan.
Official inquiries led to more questions than answers. It wasn't until the New South Wales Coronial Inquiry in 2007 that we finally got the truth. They were murdered by the Indonesian military, as was Australian ABC journalist Roger East. 7 weeks later, when Indonesia mounted a full-scale invasion on the 8th of December.
Inquérito oficial sira, lori ba pergunta barak liu, duke resposta sira. Laos to inquérito, New South Wales Coronial iha tina ni hurwa resi hitu, mak deklara dehan, ami ikus mai hetan dia los. Sira hetan oho si militar Indonesia. Anesan jornalista Australiano Roger East, semana hitu liutia, baihira Indonesia hal invasão ho escala bot, iha lorong hitu bulan Desember.
They did not die in vain. Other journalists, most notably Jill Jolliffe, who devoted her life to exposing the truth, kept their story alive. And the story of the horrific consequences of the invasion of the Timorese people. In 2003, the families of the Balibo Five, with the support of the Victorian Government, established the Balibo House Trust as a memorial to the slain journalists and to support the Balibo community.
Sira mate la saugati. Jornalista sira selu liu Jill Jolliffe, nebe didikan ya Morris, hodi fossai de los, mantém sira ni história Morris. No história com nova consciência, a teve sua invasão de povo timoroa. E a tina ni hurua resin tolu, família sira hosi Balibo 5, o apoio hosi governo Victoria, hari Balibo House Trust, hanesa memorial ba jornalista sira, nebe mate no hodi apoio a comunidade Balibo.
Today, 50 years since they were murdered, Balibo is thriving, thanks in part to the work of the Balibo House Trust, which you'll hear more about shortly. I want to thank and acknowledge the support of the Australian Embassy for today's commemoration and for the community games of football and volleyball. The Australian Embassy, through its direct aid program, has contributed to the refurbishment of the cafe, the gazebo, and the Community Learning Centre and the upgrades in the memorial room, which will be open to everyone after the formalities. Thank you, Ambassador Caitlin Wilson.
Ohin, tinan lima nulu, biasa sira hetang oho. Balibo saidi akliutam, tanbas servisu hosi Balibo House Trust, nebe itabot sira, Seiro analitan e tempo para firmai. How hakar agradece no reconhece apoio uso embaixada Austrália ba comemoração ohin no banjo comunitária futebol no voleibol. Embaixada Austrália dihusin ini programa ajuda direta contribui ona ba renovação cafeteria gazebo no CLC no atualização sira e sala memorial nebe sei loke ba mahutu afoi ramata idene. Agora how hato agradece no obrigado ba embaixadora Austrália Kate Wilson.
It is now my great pleasure to introduce Senor Paul Montes Mayor, the President of the Municipality of Bobonaro. Senor Mayor.
Idene agradece how se introduce Presidente Atual Município Bobonaro, Senhor Paulo Muniz Maia.
Obrigado, Barak, pela oportunidade. Agradeço a Mãe Maromak, da minha graça. Tomak nebe fome ita, ori ohin, ita bela halibur mami fatinene. Ao silêncio, no agruot bo, la matibian siraotu, inclui, ita ne asuayin belun dia, no mangalin na lima, usia Australia nebe, fakas sirane ran, barai dene, at bele etan independência, anestan raiseluk, yamundo. Ao respeito, ba, Sua Excelência, Ministro do Conselho do Ministro, Senhor Dr. Azil Pereira, deve representar Sua Excelência, seu Primeiro-Ministro. Ao respeito, ba, Sua Excelência, Secretário de Estado de Comunicação Social, Dr. Espírito Dias Simenes. Ao respeito, a Sua Excelência Embaixadora, Austrália, Timor-Leste. Ao respeito, a Sua Excelência Embaixadora, Nova Zelândia, Timor-Leste. Ao respeito, nós, reverendíssimo, amo Paroco Santo Antônio Balibo. Excelência Presidente do Conselho de Empresa de Timor-Leste. Excelência Diretor Executivo Centro-Sega. Excelência Provedor dos Direitos Humanos e Justiça. Excelência Diretor Executivo Museu Nacional da Resistência. Excelência Comandante PNTL Posto Balibo. Haunia Akuak Bot Badirigente Sirahoto Hahusi Nacional do município nebe marca presença para o Lorangani. Haunia Akuak Bot Mos administrador do posto administrativo Balibo Hamutu com estrutura Sertoma. Haunia Akuak Bot para comunidade Toma nebe rola parte ia vivam ida o Loran. Excelentíssimo Comandante FFDTL Destacamento Posto Tunoviro. Saudações, senhores e senhoras, bom dia para Itaoto. A Unia, saudações para bem-vindo, para convidados de honra Roto, nebema que marca presença e fatinane, e a âmbito de celebração, tina de manolo para acontecimento, massacre itanya malu, itanya suain, no mataralan ng lima, nebe la con serenidade, anesa mos asua em Timor Silo e a fato histórico nebe ohin ita hanaran Balibo fai. Honra no privilégio bot ida baita bahau Ameriga, excelência será roto ni hoje. Em capacidade hanesan, presidente da autoridade do município Bonaro, orientou boas-vindas, no breves palavras da celebração hoje Lorminia. Excelências, distintos estados, senhoras e senhores. Celebração Balibo faz batina inane, itahalo hodi comemora tina 5 acontecimento massacre ba Serna Lima. Itanimalo jornalista jovem musi Austrália. Nebe inclui Brian, Greg, Malcolm, Gary, Troy, Tony. Serna Lima, Yamate, Hanesa tragédia botida. Nebe acontece Wanhira, halohela filmagem, ba acontecimento nebe moço ia fulang outubro, tinang reunida siya itnolo Lima. Durante a invasão Indonésia e Timor-Leste, no ikus, sirahetan kaptura sa ate ya fati irene. Incidente tragédia irene, laos de Trusik permanece. E tinha memória, no e tinha consideração, por forte lorong ne anesan lorong liberdade de imprensa, mas bem, trazer ini a tudo, mas ita kata, Serna Lima, e sentido de humanismo, sentido de solidariedade, no a cara que revela do mundo e tem sofrimento, hoje nebe ita enfrenta. Durante o período de nebe, na cuco na falam Timor Post. Há sentido de solidariedade profunda para a família Sira nebe, Serna Lima, Husikela, Karik, e a balon hoje lorong presente e a lorong celebração idane. Há hakru ba imi não agradece, também imi bele maio, kodi itamutu komora lorong histórico idane. Celebração hoje, last date, itanoi nikas saída maka acontece ona ba Serna Lima, mas bem Kosirnya sacrifício, sem halo duro litan, e tinha relação amizade entre Ema no cooperação bilateral entre país Timor-Leste no país Austrália. Excelências, senhores convidados, senhoras e senhores. Serna Lima makla konona, anesan mos Timoruan riong asrua lima noluresin. Nebe lá concernia vida, causa usi, bombardeamento, nebe lança usi, soldado Indonésia, que a maioria civil, no feito no labar sira matmate. Sira em sacrifício, por il loro último da violação, sira hotu. Actos cruel sira, no abuso sira hotu, nebe halo, por il contra direitos fundamentais humanos ninian, nebe consagra ona ia international bill of human rights, no international human rights treaties, anesan instrumento internacional, rua nebe amoso Nações Unidas adopta Declaração Universal de Direitos Humanos e é dia 10 de dezembro de 1948. Além de Nidane, ita comemora tina limanolo, nudar autoridade município governado. Hawa cara kusikela mensagem ida ou rua para governo central. Liusi sua excelência, senhor secretário do Estado de Comunicação Social, senhor presidente do Conselho de Imprensa, senhor diretor executivo Centro Sega, a tubela inclui e a Itania, e a Itabo Sirania, plano para hoje, o Isa Itabele, desenvolve fatin Balibo fight, sai fatin ida. Além de bele dedica a nessa centro de memória ida, basira na Lima, bele tulumos at fatin ida bele sai centro de turística ida, onde atrai malo visitante internacional sira. Precisa taumatan para serviços comunitários sira, nebe Laraune, oferece a Balibo Host 3, Hanesan, Centro de Afeto, Centro de Aprendizagem Comunitária, no Centro Clínica Banejan, no Serviço Serviço. Há uma esperança a do Museu Nacional, no Centro Sega, Belehare, ida neva hoje, a muito, para a minha autoridade do município de Bonaro, o Isa, e da Bele, há muito que desenvolve, falta ainda sai, museu ida, com condição, componente, apoio, sincero, a tu, atrai dia clitan, visitante será, o será lior, no railar. Quando taumatan, rasik falta ainda sirmos, Bele, explora a paisagem, fora, forra Balibo, ninguém, antes será, continua, bafata em será selo, anesan, de manas marobo, no fosse, ikan host, nebe, tuir onexo nia, anoin, descobrimento bot, número 1, e a mundo nebe, e a processão se acontece, mobilidade spot, mais município de Bonaro e a futuro. Ecos, há uma esperança para embaixador Austrália e Timor Leste, a tua isa e a nível nacional, pela anoin liso o governo central, o de Hareba, Maluk na Lima, siraniang família nebe, o Sikela, não ia concretização a tua halo fating irane, dia clitan, o de halo fating ida, e a condição dia e a ema nebe, mai visita, o de matan hare, não explora verdade esse acontecimento irane rasi. Obrigado para excelência Sirahoto, nebe musicona, e depois irane tempo, o de participa e a ocasião, celebração irane. Espera, bele, experiência, evento lornohin, inian, o de Hanoi Ricas, Sirenai Lima, Nalakon. Hospitalidade, no expressão, cultura, nebe reflete, e tinha domin, basira, e tinha amizade, no tem cooperação mútua, o de continua, espírito, nebe, se acuda, ela, a tua relação entre Timor Leste e Austrália, Belemente, Yutan e a futuro irmão. Dalai Yutan, ano bem-vindo para a excelência Sirahoto. No mai Tahoto, passai tania honra no acru, o de respeito a Sirenai Lima. Nebe, dedica Sirene, vida a tu rei Irene, bele independente no libre, a Hanesan, nação selo e a mundo. Sirene espírito, hoi coita, ita na fatin ho Sirene espírito. Halo, ita halibur malu, ohin, e fatin dane, nudar exemplo, a tu ita, banati tuir, o di halo, força liutan, itanya, relação, Hanesan, povo, no relação entre nação, Timor-Leste, no Austrália. Hanoi, ano elia fuam park maidane, ba atenção toma, ao ato, obrigado ba.
Thank you very much, Senor Mayor. Could I now call upon Senor Antonio C. Bali, the Chair of the Timor-Leste Press Council.
Tuir mai ami convida Sua Excelência Presidente e Conselho de Imprensa Timor-Leste. Fatilo tempo a me entregar.
First of all, I would like to say good morning to everybody who represents here. His Excellency Minister of Presidency of Council Minister, Senor Angelo Pereira, Secretária de Comissão Social, Sr. Espírito dos Jimenez, Excelência Provedor de Direitos Humanos, Sr. Virgílio Guterres, Steve Brax, Sheffield Community Learning Center, Excellency Ambassador Australia, Miss Caitlin Wilson, Ambassador of Nova Zelanda, New Zealand, Mrs. Helen Jane Turner. I'm sorry if I don't pronounce the name correctly. Pambo Bonaro, Senhor Paulo Muniz Maia, a minha respeito. And my love goes to Evan Secreton and the family who is here. It is a deep honor to stand here in Balibo, a place that carries both pain and pride in the history of Timor-Leste. Today, we mark 50 years since the Balibo tragedy, an event that took the lives of 5 young journalists who came here simply to tell the truth. Their courage and sacrifice remind us that the pursuit of truth is never without cost. This day also coincides with our National Press Freedom Day, a day to celebrate the resilience and commitment of all Timorese journalists who continue to serve the public with integrity and bravery. From the ruins of conflict to the promise of peace, our media has played a vital role in rebuilding trust, democracy, and national identity. The Balibo House Trust stands as a living symbol of the journey, turning a place of tragedy to a house of hope, learning, and opportunity for the community. On behalf of the people of Timor-Leste, especially the community of Balibo, I would like to express our heartfelt gratitude for initiative and efforts that brings positive impact on our community, to our community, particularly to our children and youth who are the future of these nations. Later on today, we will be also witnessing the launch of a scholarship program for Timorese journalists, generously provided by the ABCID. We extend our sincere thanks to ABCID for the continued support in strengthening media development and professional growth in Timor-Leste. As we remember the Balibo 5 and honor all who fight for the truth and justice, let us renew our commitment to defend press freedom, support ethical journalism, and ensure that no one is ever silenced for seeking the truth. All of us, especially the family of the Balibo 5, has been long seeking for justice for this tragedy. Yet, justice has not yet prevailed. Let us all continue our effort to find the truth and justice for the Balibo 5 so that their sacrifice will never be forgotten and the truth will one be prevailed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Senor Marley. Very good presentation. Thank you. Could I now invite Her Excellency, the New Zealand Ambassador to Timor-Leste, Ms. Helen Turner, to address you.
participated by Minister of the Presidency of the Council of Ministers, Your Excellency Arju Pereira, Secretary of State for Social Communication, Your Excellency Expedito Dias Jimenez, and other government representatives here, Provedor Virgilio da Silva Gutierrez, former Victoria Premier and patron of the Balibo House Trust, Steve Brax and Terry Brax, Chair of the Timor-Leste Press Council, Mr. Antonio Mali, the President of the Authority of Bobonaro Municipality, Mr. Paulo Menez-Meyer, Australia's Ambassador to Timor-Leste, Your Excellency Caitlin Wilson, all of the representatives here today of the Balibo House Trust, friends, family and colleagues of the Balibo Five, the community of Balibo, but also to the Shackleton family, to Evan Shackleton and your family who are here today. Bondeva ita hotu, kia ora tātou. Today, as we know, we are here to pay our respects and to remember the Balibo Five, Channel 7's Greg Shackleton, Tony Stewart, and New Zealander Gary Cunningham, as well as Channel 9's Brian Peters and Malcolm Rennie. We also remember Roger East and Sandra Tunis, the Timorese and all other media, and the Balibo martyrs who were either attacked or died in the War of Independence or in the aftermath of the 1999 popular consultation. The Balibo Five were killed because they sought to tell the truth of what was happening in Portuguese East Timor in 1975. It was a tragedy that should not have occurred, and which time has neither erased nor eased. And time has also not eased the pain and grief of the men's loved ones, friends and colleagues who are acknowledged today. In 2025, the pursuit of truth through a free and independent media remains a critically important pillar of democracy. Yet journalists are still dying and being incarcerated around the world, and in ever-increasing numbers. And so it remains incumbent on all of us to stand firmly in defence of a free and a safe media. And I congratulate and acknowledge the efforts of the Timor-Leste Press Council in its pursuit both of quality journalism as well as safety of journalists, including through the Dili Declaration promoting press freedom, which I was pleased to see that both Australia and New Zealand had signed. I'd also like this morning to acknowledge the Balibo House Trust, its founders, former Premier, the wide network of supporters in Australia and New Zealand, and the community here. The focus and works of the Trust over 2 decades have not just preserved history and memories, but they've achieved lasting benefits for the health and the well-being of the wider Bobonaro community. And I'm pleased also that New Zealand remains a steadfast partner here in Bobonaro. We're working alongside partners in community policing, early childhood education, livelihoods through aquaculture, tourism, and with partners like World Vision in developing the young leaders of Balibo. While I'm speaking here today as the New Zealand Ambassador, I want to take a moment and add a personal note. As the former Premier said, 50 years ago I remember where I was, and I was a young school kid in rural New Zealand, wanting to be a journalist, when our family also watched and read the news about what had happened here. And 40 years ago, I got my job as a journalist, my first job. And for 2 decades, I worked alongside reporters and media colleagues who ensured that the Balibo Five were not forgotten, nor the circumstances of their deaths, as they are not forgotten today. Let me conclude by ending with a Maori proverb, the whakatauki, which I think captures our remembrance of the past and our appreciation of the present. Hei ata anō, te mori e te pō roa. This is a new day after a long night. I'll just speak for a few moments in te tau. Awanita ihi nei, atu presta itania o ngā James, na atu hanoi ki Kaswali Balibo 5, Greg Shackleton, Tony Stewart, Brian Peters, Malcolm Rennie, na ema New Zealanders like Gary Cunningham. Ita mos hanoi ki Kas Roger East, Timor Post, Media Hotu, no Materas Balibo, Nian Hotu, Nibi Mati Tambaluta Timor-Leste, Timor-Leste, Nia Upunau. Balibo 5 he tono o ha tamasera kuka atu fosai lielos. Nei mai tragedia nebi tuala los la belly contisi. Tira la halo eman ebi sera hadomi senji kaman. Maskina nei I hatina 2025. Jornalista sera na fatin la seguro no ita hoto Iha responsabilidade a proteger media e a nebi livre no independente. Hanasan parte importante e a husi democracia. Owen Laurent, how was hakarak reconhece Balibo House Trust, na minha equipa, mas itubot será atente à nova comunidade. Mas Owen Laurent, how marca embaixadora Nova Zelândia, Tina Limanula Lioba, how much laborat fetu jovem, e a nebi hakarak sai jornalista. No iha tinan hat mulu Lioba, how hetan how mea serviço dahuluk mura jornalista. How serviço hamatuk, no eva sera nebi, assegura katak Balibo 5, la haluha. Tanei, mak how senti on the tebis, dalamaka presenza iha nei Owen. Iata ano tumori iti poroa. Iha loran faun hafoin kala nebi naruk. Obrigado ba ita hotu nebi wa iha nehi ohun loran.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Tura. Excellent speech. Could I now call on Her Excellency, the Australian Ambassador to Timor-Leste, Ms. Caitlin Wilson, please.
I start by paying my respects to His Excellency Aju Pereira, Minister for the Presidency of the Council of Ministers, Secretary of State for Communications, Senor Expedito Dias Jimenez, and Provedor, Senor Virgilio Guterres. Of course, to our MC, former Victorian Premier, Mr. Steve Bracks, and Terry, other members of the Balibo House Trust, to Senor Paul Moniz Maya, Presidente Municipalidade de Bobonaro, PAM, Senor Casimiro dos Santos, Local Administrator, Senor Antonio Mali, Chair of the Timor-Leste Press Council. I'd like to extend a warm welcome today, of course, to family represented here, Evan Shackleton, your wife Jules, and your children Kate and Jack Shackleton. It's wonderful to meet you and to have you join today. I also want to acknowledge representatives of the FFDTL and PNTL, other representatives from government, members of the community, volunteers and employees at the Community Learning Centre, community members, and of course my colleagues and colleagues from the Australian and New Zealand Embassy, all participants today. So many important people to acknowledge. It's also hard after some very poignant speeches to come towards the end of the formalities. So I will just simply try to highlight a few messages that I wanted to reinforce that have already been laid out today. And while I listen to the very personal messages of experience from Australian and New Zealand colleagues, and think about, I was a very young person when 50 years ago, when this all transpired, so I confess not being able to remember what had happened, being so young, but what has been a memory and stayed with me and many other Australians of various ages is the legacy being kept alive. So again, I want to acknowledge that we're here today on the 50th anniversary since the deaths of 5 very young journalists from Australia, New Zealand and the United Kingdom based in Australia. Greg Shackleton, Tony Stewart, Gary Cunningham, Brian Peters and Malcolm Rennie. And we also would like to remember Roger East, as we know, an Australian journalist killed 6 weeks later in Dili after investigating the deaths of the Balibo 5. On behalf of the Australian Government, I acknowledge the profound grief that families, family members, friends and colleagues have carried for half a century, and to pay my respects to the way you have kept the memory of the Balibo 5 alive. 50 years goes slowly at times, and time does not dull the pain. These journalists came to Timor-Leste with a deep sense of purpose, and as others have already acknowledged, to tell a story that deeply mattered, and to shine a light on events that many were not aware of. Their work and their sacrifice drew the attention of Australians to Timor-Leste at a critical moment in history. And while this was the beginning of many more years, they did help forge that early connection between Australians and Timorese, as we have already seen today by the fantastic community participation and hearing speeches from Pam Bobinaro and the President of the Press Council. These connections have only grown stronger over time. And the story of the Balibo 5 is deeply woven into Timor-Leste's national history. The memory of these 5 exceptional reporters lives on also in the vibrant media landscape of Timor-Leste, and the impact is seen universally. Journalists continuing to pursue truth with courage and integrity. It also lives on in the friendship and collaboration between Australian and Timorese media professionals, then even more broadly in the grassroots connections between our communities that builds on empathy, on solidarity and shared values. You've heard a little bit about our new scholarship, but I'd like to now formally announce here in Balibo the launch of a new public interest journalism scholarship delivered by the Australian Embassy in partnership with ABC International Development. And ABC International Development, or ABCID, if you hear that acronym, that's who they are. A few colleagues here with us as well, representing the program. This will support young emerging Timorese journalists under the age of 30, remembering how young the Balibo 5 were, and supporting journalists committed to public interest reporting. Successful applicants will be funded to travel to Australia for placements with ABC reporting teams and ongoing mentoring from ABC journalists to help develop and publish their work. We wanted to announce this initiative here in Balibo and on this very significant day, because this place, this story, symbolised the power and the responsibility of public interest journalism. And we hope that this scholarship is a symbol not only of our enduring media partnership, but even more so of the deep human connections. We can look around here today and see so many examples that demonstrate how the connections have grown. We stand in front of the house where the journalists stayed, and that has been very beautifully preserved by the Balibo House Trust, which beyond this building also supports local development projects. Also, civil society, including unions, advocacy groups, and of course, the families of the journalists have all played a vital role in keeping the memory of the Balibo Five and Roger East alive. This advocacy helps build a culture of solidarity and people-to-people links. While the deaths of the Balibo Five and Roger East indeed marked a dark moment in our shared history, the legacy and their legacy has become a bridge, connecting our two nations through compassion, cooperation, and mutual respect. Let's continue to honour their memory, not only in words and at formal events, but in the work we do together. Obrigado, Wayne.
Bom dia, Malu Sirahotu, Hausi Halo Tradução Bada, que representa a embaixador australiana, Elian Teto. Bom dia, Ba Emahotu, embaixador Antônio Respeito, Ba Sua Excelência, Presidente do Conselho Ministro Agil Pereira, Sua Excelência, Secretário de Estado de Comunicação Social, Expedito Dias Jimenez, Senhor Virgílio MC Steve Brax, a senhora Terry Brax, membro do governo Sira, no representante, membro do governo Sira, o distrito Bolsonaro. Hoje também muito que ane, hoje ane hikas jornalista australiano na Lima, Sira mate desde Tina Lima no Liba, Sira Greg Shackleton, Tony Stewart, Gary Cunningham, Brian Peters, no Malcolm Rennie. Itamos ano hikas Roger East, jornalista australiano nebe makamate Yedili, semana neng kahitu, foi acontecimento de Balibo. Investiga ela, malu jornalista Balibo na Lima ne mate. O governo australiano nara, embaixadora Caitlin Wilson Nakara reconhece família no colega se mate Biansira, basira nia tristeza no sentimento laran susar nebe sira senti a experiência durante a Tina Lima no Laran. Embaixadora Caitlin Masakar Kato, ninha respeito da maneira hoje na família, no colega se mate Biansira, halo ona hori preserva mate Biansira na memória, atu continua moris na fati. Ita atene jornalista na Lima ne mai Timor Leste, o objetivo da nebe clear, atu fasa história da nebe importante, ba acontecimento da nebe mag-emabarak, sedang katene yung momento na ba. Sira niya serviço makas, no sacrifício, atrayo na mabara ko si Australia, pode atene ko na ba Timor Leste. Yung momento da nebe, critico tebe siya Timor Leste na história. Liusi dane, jornalista na Lima nemos criou na conexão, nebe kliang entre povo Timor Leste e Australia, nebe sa metem lutang o tempo. Aneseng tahare, participação sa comunidade Balibo no Bolsonaro niya barak tebe sene. Agora, história Balibo 5 ne, kuda metingon he Timor Leste na história nacional. Memória si jornalista na Lima ne, moris na fating he setor media he Timor Leste nebe dinamiko tebes, liliu ba malu jornalista sira, ato continua bukalielos, o coragem na integridade. Serviço ne moris na fating amizade, no colaboração entre mídia profissional, entre australiano e timoransira. No itahare, a ligação nebe clean entre comunidades sira base, nebe cria simpatia, solidariedade, com valor nebe fahe hanesa. Hanesa hoje mirou na ona, com a babul estudo nebe senhor Antônio, o Conselho de Imprensa mencionou na, o lorong embaixadora Caitlin Wilson, formalmente a cara anuncia com a lançamento bolsa estudo jornalismo, vai interesse público, deve fornecer os embaixadas da Austrália, lihusi parceria ho ABCID. Karek malu baru ronona ABCID sene membro balu mos participa hane. Programa idane se for apoio para jornalista foi em Timor Post, nebe foi na rua na carreira e área de jornalismo, basira nebe tinang tulun mai krai, anesang ho matebian jornalista Balibo 5 nem 5 nem. No programa ne loke basira nebe ia commitmento para reportagem interesse público nia. Aplicante sira nebe sucesso. Se halo viagem para a Austrália, ba colocação a muito com equipa reportagem ABC nia. Nós iremos de formação, no mentorização a muito com jornalista ABC, a tu apoio sira onde desenvolve, no capacita sira ne serviço. Governo Austrália, onde representa a embaixada Austrália ne anuncia inisiativa de Balibo, ou em lorong ya fatin de tambah fatin gani ia história da nebe maka simboliza bit no responsabilidade de jornalismo ba interesse público nia. Espera bolso estúdio da ne se sai símbolo la oslet ba parceria mídia nebe dura, mas vemos ba ligação entre Ema Sira husi Timor Leste no Austrália nebe clientes. Banhire tempo Balibo, ia tempo agora, e exemplo barang nebe fosai, o insan nasaun rua ne, ia ligação, ka conexão nebe buras, e também que umane, Balibo Flag House, fatim nebe jornalista sira, hela ia ne, no retamona preservação, usi Balibo House traz. Sira apoio, projeto de desenvolvimento local sira. Hamuto com sociedade civil, grupo advocacia sira, no claro, jornalista matebiense na família Rasi, halaona papel importante ida, pode manter Balibo 5 no Roger Easter de memória. Advocacia ida ne ajuda na hari cultura solidariedade, no ligação entre povo australiano e Timor-Leste. Matebian sira Balibo 5 nian, no Roger East, marca momento na kukunida e história, nebe nasa rua ne faham hamutu. Sira ne legado, saya nesang ponte dan nebe makliga nasaun sira Austrália no Timor-Leste, lihusi compaixão, cooperação no respeito humano. Maita continua for vacina na memória, la osle tolia fuangka evento formal sira nesang ne, mas vemos lihusi tene serviço nebe tahalamutu. Obrigada, Bara.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Wilson, and thank you very much for that great announcement. It's outstanding. Could I now call on my good friend, His Excellency, Minister Aziu Pereira, to address you. Thank you.
Olha inglês para famílias Balibo 5 Unia, So I must say now good afternoon and welcome to all our very special guests. I know there are so many, and I just endorse the greetings that my previous speakers have already conveyed. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, dear friends from Australia and also from Timor Post. We gather here, it's October 2025, to mark the 50th year since the tragedies of Balibo and also indeed, as mentioned before, that claimed the lives of courageous journalists, the Balibo Five and Rosalind. 50 years ago, exactly, 5 young journalists in Balibo and one in Dili stood between silence and the rest of the world. They shows truth and they paid with their lives. Today, we remember them not as distant figures, but as echoes of our own responsibility to speak, to demand, to act. The National Press Day today shows the motto of press freedom for truth and justice. On this 50th anniversary, their stories demand remembrance, not only for the sacrifice those journalists made in pursuit of truth about crimes done by powerful nations to weaker ones, and also for the critical lessons their faiths teach about the responsibilities of governments, the perils of secrecy, and the courage of those who report from world's most dangerous frontiers. Their deaths are not merely distant footnotes of history. They remain wounds in our conscience, reminders of the human cost of conflict, the fragility of truth in war, and the heavy burden of moral responsibility across borders. In this commemoration, I wish to speak both to memory and to questions. Why they were reporting in Balibo? What was the response to the deaths? And what meanings to these events have for Australians and as well to us Timorese, as we reflect on this half a century passage. On 16 October 1975, the 5 journalists from Australian TV came to this place, to Balibo, to investigate reports of invasions from Indonesian forces. The group was Greg Shackleton, Australian Channel 7 reporter, Tony Stewart, Australian Channel 7 sound recordist, Brian Peters, British Channel 9 cameraman, Malcolm Rennie, British Channel 9 reporter, Gary Cunningham, New Zealand Channel 7 cameraman. Here at Balibo, from the nearby Old Fort, they had a perfect view of the coast towards the Indonesian border. Soon after, they encountered threatening patrols and had contact with senior Timorese leader, now President Dr. Jose Ramos Horta. They were then able to film Indonesian naval ships offshore. The journalists stayed here, we mentioned many times before. At that time it was a deserted house, which they painted with Australian flag in the hope that their journalistic status might afford them protection. They dubbed the house the Australian Embassy, in recognition of the protection they hoped for to have but did not realistically receive. In the early morning of 16 October 75, Indonesian forces launched an attack on Balibo as part of a covert operation codenamed Operasi Flamboyant, to seize the key border towns of Mariana, Sabe, and also Balibo. That was the first stage of the full-scale invasion of Timor-Leste. That morning, within minutes of filming advancing special forces soldiers, the 5 journalists were dead. They had been murdered in cold blood by Indonesian forces, intent on silencing them to suppress evidence of Indonesian military involvement in East Timor. For a moment, the Indonesian invasion forces drew back and hesitated, awaiting the world's official reactions to the murders. But there was none. Weeks later, Indonesian forces launched massive invasion that opened a brutal 25-year occupation, during which as many as 200,000 Timorese perished through violence, through famine, and forced displacement. It was nothing less than a humanitarian catastrophe. The official public Indonesian position, long held and repeated by subsequent Australian governments, was that the journalists died as incidental casualties of crossfire during the fighting. However, over subsequent years and decades, a very different account emerged, brought forward through testimonial evidence, inquiries, and most importantly, investigative journalism. As my good friend Steve Brax mentioned before, in 2007 in New South Wales, the Deputy State Coroner, Laurel Pinch, conducted an inquest into the death of Brian Peters after pressure from the families, and in doing so, implicitly extended findings to all 5 journalists. Our findings were stark. She found that the Balibo 5 died at Balibo on 16 October 75 from wounds sustained when they were shot and stabbed deliberately and not in the heat of the battle by members of the Indonesian Special Forces. The coroner concluded that the journalists were not incidental casualties. They had been captured as non-combatants and then deliberately executed despite contesting their status. She further found compelling circumstantial evidence that the orders originated from higher levels, possibly up to Major General Benny Morgani, the then commander of the Special Forces. The coroner's report recommended that prosecutions under Australia's war crimes provisions be considered. However, that never happened. As Indonesian forces moved in towards Dili, Australian aid workers and medical staff joined with other foreign correspondents in Timor and withdrew to Australia. Roger East chose to stay, planning to escape with Fretilin into the mountains and transmit reports back to Australia by radio. His final broadcast for ABC's foreign correspondence report on 7 December 75 described invading Indonesian troops in the capital Dili. The next day, East was trapped in Dili and soon captured by Indonesian soldiers. After being taken prisoner, he was executed by one shot to the head at the wharf of Dili Harbor, along with mass execution of Timorese prisoners and civilians. He was executed as a continuation of the Indonesian campaign to silence independent news. In both the Balibo file and Rosari's death, as in the case of the Indonesian invasion of East Timor, allegations of collusion, suppression of truth, and diplomatic cover-up loom large. In short, decades of silence, classified files, and diplomatic deference have allowed much of the truth to remain buried in justice, if not in memory. As we mark 50 years since those deaths, what should such remembrance offer to the Australians and to us, the Timorese? For the Australians, there is honoring journalistic courage. The Balibo Five and Rosaries embody the essential principle: the journalist risks their lives to report truth others should suppress. Their sacrifice demands we honor press freedom and protection from truth-seeking work, as our media personnel today alert us is much needed to be done. Foreign policy lessons. The Balibo and Rosaries' death, as well as of the Timorese, provide a necessary caution against uncritical alignment with powerful nations. They show the moral cost of political compromise, and they also press us to center human rights, not only strategic interest in regional policy and alliance. For us, the Timorese, there is respect for suffering. Timorese communities, our communities, have endured profound loss over decades. Remembering the Balibo Five and Rosaries affirms their story is part of our nation's struggle for dignity and for truth. International solidarity. The presence of Australians and many other friends here acknowledges that Timor's cause has had many supporters beyond our borders. It strengthens years-long bonds of trust and moral partnership. 50 years is a long time. Yet remembrance matters precisely because justice is never automatic. Commemoration too is not passive. It is an active practice of memory, demanding transparency. For investigative journalism, it is about pushing for declassification, renewing investigations, supporting journalism training, and strengthening international norms of protection for journalists. Ceremonies are frequently held to celebrate, like today, not only the lives of Shackleton, Cunningham, Stewart, Rennie, Peters, and East, but also to recommit to the principles of free speech and international accountability. In Australia, memorials such as the War Correspondence Memorial in Canberra and in Timor, here the Balibo House, stand as precincts of memory. But memory alone is not enough. Although each generation must accept that truth matters, that the costs borne by those who spoke must not be in vain. 50 years is a long distance, and new generations in Australia and Timor-Leste may ask us, why dwell so long on events in 75? The answer is simple. It is because memory bridges time, and moral duty never expires. The legacy of the Balibo is inseparable from the history of Timor-Leste. Its struggle for independence, the regional politics that shaped its fate, and the international pursuit for truth amidst violence and denial. Their sacrifice endures every act of remembrance, every step towards reconciliation, and every story that honors those who confront injustice. And they charge us, this generation and the next, to keep open the space for truth, for justice, and for remembrance. As Australians and as Timorese, neighbors linked by geography, history, and humanity, our responsibility is bound together. May this 50th anniversary not be mere ceremony. We hope that this ceremony will keep us strength, give us strength, make us stronger to continue to pursue truth and justice. Thank you.
Thank you to Minister Aziu Pereira. What an outstanding speech. It deserves another round of applause. It was just outstanding. Thank you, Minister. Very, very good. Very good. I wonder if I could invite up onto the podium Evan Shackleton and the Balibo Martyrs for an exchange of gifts, if I could please.
Dia, ho respeito a mi convida familia Balibo Martyrs. Ami convida familia Balibo Martyrs na in todo. Señor Fernando Carvalho, Señora Apolonia, Señora Umbelina. Dia, idene maka ita troca presente entre familia Balibo Martyrs, nema mate ha, ema oho ha 99, o familia Balibo 5, Usia Australia, Mr. Evan Secleton se representa. Maida Basaliman.
Given that Evan is carrying so many ties, I wonder if Jules, Jack, and Kate Shackleton could come up and help him carry some of these as well, please. Evan Shackleton, I wonder on behalf of the Balibo 5 family if you want to say a few words.
I'm very honoured to represent the families of the Balibo 5 today, but I cannot speak for them or on their behalf. We're all different and we all have our own voices. I'm only able to tell you how I feel. The 16th of October has always been a very hard day for me. I never know how I'm going to feel when I wake up, and I never really know what I'm going to do. Some days I listen to the music that my dad and I used to listen to, and I've still got some of his vinyl records to listen to. Some days I watch the movies that he took me to at the cinema, and sadly some days I just drink and drink until I fall asleep. I also want to remember the families of the Balibo markets and the people of Timor-Leste. Our shared pain is felt amongst all of us, and I understand that my story is dwarfed by the people of Timor-Leste's story. I wanted to say that I am so indebted to the people of Timor-Leste, and especially the people of Balibo, who have gone to all this trouble to commemorate this occasion. I am completely overwhelmed. I can never repay you, but I will try. From now on the 16th of October, I'm going to think of this amazing day that you have created and the wonderful and amazing people who I have met. I hope my dad's remains are somewhere here in Balibo. because the people of Timor-Leste, and especially the people of Balibo, are the only people that I trust to keep his remains safe. You are the perfect custodians of my dad's remains, and I'm deeply indebted to you, very deeply, for having done it for so long. Thank you.
Thank you, Evan and the family. Thank you very much for those beautiful words. Well, in wrapping up, thank you to everyone who's contributed to this memorial by speaking or organising, and thank you for your presence at this significant event. There will be lunch for invited guests at the Fort Hotel and refreshments in the cafe here. Please take time to look at the new displays in the flag house, just here. There's also an exhibition by the local artist Toto in the Veterans Museum just in the fort. Also, the Veterans Museum display is there as well if you get to see it. So, obrigado, thank you very much.
Obrigado by Mahotu nebe conclusiona para memorial idenen. Bihosi qualia ka organiza no agradece by Mahotu minha presença e evento significado idenen. Seja almoço ba banyak kasira nebe hetan convite ia Fort Hotel no cafe ia cafeteria neba antes ita basu nulili. Depois idene ita sei hare hamutu exhibition phone ia uma bandeira ka uma Balibo 5 Chelsea no ia mos exposição ida hosi artista lokal Toto ia museum veteranos Siranian ia Fort Hotel exposição museum veteran nian se ita bot sedang kare kita bel hakat hamutu ba. Dia, ami convida sosializa no ito bot sira bainaka no convidado sira hotu itaba cafeteria patinya sore na ba kita hetanetik ayah rumah depois kita continua ba sunadili ya uma sina nebe maka sira mate ba bate no patina entrega dari etang convida ito hotu atu ba ya cafeteria ita ne hotu. Obrigado.